When Chad Stahelski's name gets attached to a project, you know exactly what you're getting. This is the guy who turned gun ballet into an art form with John Wick, and now he's taking on Highlander with Henry Cavill in the lead role. The first look images just dropped, and they're honestly perfect. Cavill's standing in two completely different settings, a Buddhist temple and what looks like a Christian church, both times rocking that iconic long coat and gripping what has to be the Ramirez katana. The immediate vibe is that Stahelski gets it. He understands that Highlander isn't just about dudes with swords running around through history. It's about the emotional devastation of immortality wrapped in some of the most badass sword combat ever conceived. The casting choices alone tell you everything about the scale and ambition here. Dave Bautista taking on the Kurgan is inspired because he brings this physical intensity that goes beyond just being big. He proved with Drax that he can balance menace with unexpected depth, and his turn as Rabban in Dune showed genuine cruelty lurking under the surface. The Kurgan needs both. Russell Crowe stepping into Sean Connery's shoes as Ramirez is bold but smart. Connery was irreplaceable in terms of pure charisma, but Crowe has that same weathered warrior energy mixed with mentorship qualities. And Karen Gillan as Connor's wife signals they're not doing the bare minimum with that character. You don't hire someone with her range for a throwaway role. She can handle action and emotional weight equally, plus she's actually Scottish and using her real accent. That matters more than people think. Here's what made the original Highlander transcend its B-movie roots back in 1986. Christopher Lambert played Connor MacLeod as this tragic figure cursed to watch everyone he loves wither and die while he stays frozen in time. The premise sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. Immortal warriors hiding among normal people, playing this deadly game where the only way to die is decapitation. And when you kill another immortal, you absorb all their power and knowledge through this thing called the Quickening. It's part lightning storm, part mystical experience, and completely over the top. The endgame is the prize, which goes to the last immortal standing. There can be only one. That's not just a tagline, that's the entire existential nightmare these people live with. But underneath all that mythology, the emotional core was what hooked people. Connor marries Heather in the Scottish Highlands back in the 1500s after getting exiled from his own clan. They thought he was possessed or demonic because he survived a fatal wound in battle and walked back into the village like nothing happened. Medieval Scotland wasn't exactly progressive about unexplainable phenomena, so he rebuilds his life with Heather in isolation, and then he has to watch her age and eventually pass away while he doesn't change at all. That's the curse right there. Immortality isn't about living forever, it's about losing everyone forever. Sean Connery's Ramirez shows up to explain the rules after Connor's exile, being peak Sean Connery in every scene, and you realize the game has been going on for millennia with no end in sight until one person wins it all. The sword Cavill's carrying in these new images has serious lore behind it. Connor started with a basic Scottish longsword from his clan, nothing special about it. But after the Kurgan murders Ramirez in 1547, Connor inherits his katana. That blade was forged by Masamune, arguably the greatest Japanese swordsmith in history, as a wedding gift when Ramirez married his daughter. So it's not just a weapon, it's a family heirloom with centuries of meaning hammered into the steel. When Connor eventually uses that same blade to kill the Kurgan in modern-day New York, it becomes poetic justice. The sword that witnessed Ramirez's death delivers his vengeance. Now here's where things get interesting with these first look images. The Christian church scene probably mirrors the 1986 film where Connor confronts the Kurgan before their final showdown. Churches and holy ground play a huge role in Highlander mythology because immortals can't fight on consecrated ground. Nobody knows why. The original never explained if it's magical enforcement or just tradition, so ancient that breaking it makes you an outcast. Either way, it creates these neutral zones where immortals can meet without immediately trying to decapitate each other. But that Buddhist temple scene is completely new territory. The original films never showed Connor in Asia, though we know Ramirez traveled extensively and spent significant time in Japan. My theory is this reboot is massively expanding Connor's backstory in the centuries between Ramirez's death and the modern era. Maybe Connor went searching for answers about his mentor, maybe he traveled to Japan to find Masamune's descendants or to understand the blade he inherited. That would add serious depth to his character arc. He's not just avenging Ramirez, he's honoring his memory by walking in his footsteps and understanding where he came from. Stahelski mentioned the film spans from 1500 Scotland to modern New York and Hong Kong. That Hong Kong detail is crucial because the John Wick films proved Stahelski knows how to use international locations as more than pretty backgrounds. They become character in the action sequences. I'm betting the Buddhist temple is in Hong Kong, and we're going to see Connor navigate criminal underworlds while crossing paths with other immortals who've been hiding in Asia for centuries. The Highlander TV series established that immortals naturally congregate in major cities because that's where they can blend in and where the game draws them together. Hong Kong makes perfect sense for that. It's also a chance to explore different fighting philosophies. Medieval Scottish sword fighting was about weight and momentum. Those long swords were heavy and required strength and technique to wield effectively. The katana Connor takes from Ramirez is lighter and faster, creating interesting contrast in combat styles. The Kurgan, being this massive, brutal fighter, probably overwhelms opponents with raw aggression. Connor has to be smarter and more technical, using everything Ramirez taught him to overcome people who might be physically stronger. Let's address the elephant in the room. This franchise has a complicated history that goes way beyond the original film. Highlander 2 is legitimately one of the worst sequels ever made, and that's not hyperbole. It retconned the entire mythology by revealing immortals were actually aliens from a planet called Zeist. Aliens. They literally made immortals into aliens. The director eventually released a cut that removed that nonsense, but the damage was permanent. Highlander 3 tried to course correct by pretending the second film never happened and basically remaking the first film with a different villain. Then you had multiple TV series with different protagonists, anime adaptations, and a continuity so tangled that even hardcore fans gave up trying to make sense of it. The beauty of what Lionsgate and Amazon are doing here is they have a blank slate. They can cherry pick the best elements from 40 years of Highlander content while leaving the garbage behind. Keep the core mythology about immortals and the quickening. Keep the emotional weight of watching centuries pass while everyone around you dies. Keep the visceral sword combat, but ditch the aliens, streamline the lore, and build something coherent. Stahelski talked about approaching it like the first John Wick, where you're dropped into this world and learn the rules organically through context and character interactions. No exposition dumps, no characters explaining the plot to each other, just show us how this world functions through action and consequence. The Watchers are apparently making an appearance with Jeremy Irons playing their leader, which is both exciting and potentially concerning. In the TV series, the Watchers were this secret organization that monitored and recorded immortal history without interfering. Of course, they interfered constantly because that's more interesting dramatically. Some Watchers became obsessed with their assigned immortals and crossed ethical lines. Others tried to manipulate the game itself. There was even a splinter faction called the Hunters who decided immortals were too dangerous to exist and actively hunted them down. My hope is the reboot keeps the Watchers in the background as this mysterious presence rather than making them central to the plot. The game between immortals should remain the focus, not some human conspiracy. Bautista as the Kurgan is either going to be brilliant or disastrous with no middle ground. Clancy Brown's original performance was terrifying because he was completely unhinged and chaotic. He'd kill you, laugh about it, and then go grab a drink. Pure predatory menace wrapped in leather and bad attitude. Bautista brings different energy, a physical presence that feels almost supernatural combined with the acting range he's developed over the years. The Kurgan needs to be someone Connor legitimately fears, not because he's stronger, but because he's been playing the game longer and genuinely enjoys the violence. He's had centuries to perfect the art of killing immortals, and he's really good at it. That should be chilling to watch. The fight choreography will make or break this film. Stahelski built his entire reputation on action sequences that are clear, brutal, and practical. No shaky cam nonsense, no rapid cuts hiding stunt doubles. John Wick worked because you could follow every punch, every gunshot, every moment of violence. Highlander needs that same clarity applied to sword combat. You can't just swing these weapons around like they're weightless. The choreography has to respect the physics and technique of actual sword fighting while still being cinematic and exciting. The contrast between different immortals' fighting styles could be fascinating. Some have been warriors for millennia and fight with practiced efficiency. Others might be younger immortals still learning, more desperate and wild in their technique. One aspect I hope they explore deeply is the psychological toll of the game. Imagine living for 500 years knowing that every friendship, every love, every connection you make with another immortal could end with one of you killing the other. The game demands it. There can be only one. But what if you don't want to play anymore? What if you're exhausted? The TV series touched on this with Duncan MacLeod growing increasingly weary of of the violence and loss. Connor in the original seemed more accepting of his fate, almost eager to win the prize so the game would finally end. I'd love to see this reboot dig into Connor's mental state as centuries pile up. Does he become more emotionally detached to protect himself? Does he start seeing other immortals as obstacles rather than people? Or does he desperately cling to his humanity even as everything around him changes? The prize itself remains intentionally vague in the original, which actually works in its favor. It's implied to be ultimate knowledge and power, the ability to know what all other immortals knew, to see what they saw, to understand the breadth of human history from multiple perspectives simultaneously. That's either enlightenment or complete madness depending on how you look at it. Some immortals pursue it obsessively, others run from it. The Kurgan wants it because he's a megalomaniac who believes power justifies itself. Connor wants it because he's been told it's his destiny, but I don't think he truly understands what it means until he claims it. The reboot doesn't need to explain the prize in detail. Keep it mythical, keep it mysterious, let audiences wonder what could possibly be worth centuries of bloodshed. There's something poetic about setting key scenes in places of worship. Beyond the holy ground rules preventing combat, these locations could represent Connor's spiritual journey. He starts in Christian Scotland, but after 5 centuries, has he explored other philosophies searching for meaning? Has he sat with Buddhist monks trying to find peace? That would be compelling character development. The juxtaposition of different religious settings could reflect Connor's evolution across time, showing how he's tried to make sense of his existence through different spiritual frameworks. The 2027 release window feels realistic, given where production stands. Filming recently started based on these first look images, so post-production, visual effects, and sound design lie ahead. The quickening sequences alone require serious CGI work. Those lightning storm power absorption scenes were crude in the original, but iconic nonetheless. Modern technology can make them spectacular as long as they don't go overboard with digital effects. Practical effects mixed with digital enhancement usually ages better than pure CGI. Mad Max Fury Road used real stunts and vehicles enhanced with digital work and still looks incredible because the foundation was real. How they handle violence and its consequences will be crucial. John Wick is incredibly violent but stylized and almost balletic. Highlander's violence needs to feel heavier because these are people who've lived for centuries being killed permanently. When an immortal dies, hundreds or thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and experience vanish forever. That weight should be palpable. Connor isn't just killing enemies, he's erasing histories. The Kurgan doesn't care, which makes him terrifying, but Connor should care, and that internal conflict could add layers to the character. I want to see Connor struggle with the game itself, not just physically but morally. The rules force immortals into conflict whether they want it or not. What happens when Connor meets another immortal and they become friends? What happens when they eventually have to fight because there can be only one? Does Connor make allies knowing they're temporary? Does he avoid other immortals entirely to postpone the inevitable? These questions could elevate this reboot beyond being just a sword-fighting spectacle. Give me philosophical depth wrapped in action sequences. Make me care about these characters before you kill them. Highlander works because it's fundamentally about something deeper than sword fights and special effects. It's about what it means to be human when you're forced to watch humanity from outside. It's about holding onto your identity across centuries when everything else changes. If Stahelski and Cavill understand that, and it seems like they do, then we might finally get the Highlander film this franchise has deserved for 40 years. The pieces are in place. The passion is there. Now we just have to trust they can pull it off.